Peace, peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Make sure y'all hit that like button, family, as y'all come in. Make sure y'all share the video out. This conversation, our conversations are important because it is apparent that we are becoming thought leaders in this political space. And I don't just mean the brothers and I up here on Be the Power. I'm talking about all of us in the overall Freedmen Reparationist Collective. And I want to touch on that a little bit tonight with this DC becoming its own state. Right? We need to talk about that because it falls in line with some of what we say from Charles Blow's book, and I'm gonna probably pull up some of those excerpts as well. But again, share the button, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I think we provide some dynamic political analysis and content on this channel, and the few rule the masses at the end of the day. The few rule the masses. And that's what we are as a collective. We are the few, and we have to get things done for the masses of our people. And this is why I believe that this particular conversation is so important. So if you want to support the platform, hit click on that super chat, fam. If you want to support in other ways, you can cash app us at Be the Power. You can also become a monthly member and join Patreon. That link is right there. We have the upcoming Juneteenth reparations rally as well. We're gonna touch on a little bit of that later on in this episode as well. Shout out to everybody that's here. Antonia Edwards, excuse me. Pieces. Demetra Smith says she's new to the channel. All right, so what I want to do, the bros will be on in a few. What I want to do is I want to I want to get I want to get into this bill because this bill is it's a large bill. I didn't expect. Let me share my screen. I didn't expect this bill to be this large at all. So this is a large bill. I thought this was, going to be brief and simple, but they really laid out statehood in this bill. And I didn't read the whole bill, obviously. I've read through some of it, but the contents of the bill are important. And I don't know how well y'all can see that. Let me put this in the live chat. Peace, brother Corey Lorenz. Shout out to the BTP mods. Jarice Tellis, peace, peace. That's the link to the bill. Peace, Brian Smith. So let's I just want to run through the table of contents, right? Now, as you can see, that's a pretty big bill. But they're showing us how to run a government. Because now it's our time to step up. They're showing us what bills look like. Because when was the last time we had a bill introduced like this where the possibility of a state in the contiguous territory of the United States, not one of the islands, but the contiguous territories of the United States of America was going to actually be a state. So the section 1 short title, it's just the title, State of Washington, D.C. Subtitle A, Procedures for Admission, right? And it gets into the admission to the Union subject to the provisions of this act upon the issuance of the proclamation required by Section 103A. The state of Washington, Douglas Commonwealth, is declared to be a state of the United States of America and is declared admitted into the Union on an equal footing with other states in all respects whatsoever. So this thing really, really gets deep. This bill is HR 5151, obviously alluding to the um 51st state. So you see, peace, everybody in the chat. Metro customer, Juanita Murray. Um, so let's go back up and run through these table of contents, right? Admission to the union, election of senators and representatives. I should have read that. I might get into that a little bit later. Issuance of presidential proclamation. Subtitle B is the seat of government of the United States, territory and boundaries, description of capital, retention of title to property, effect of admission on current laws of seat of government of United States, Capital National Guard, termination of legal status of seat of government of United States as a municipal corporation. Like this thing really gets deep, and I implore we all read it and understand it. Subtitle C, general provisions relating to laws of state. Effect of admission on current laws, pending actions and proceedings, limitation on authority to tax federal property, United States nationality. Like this thing really, really gets deep. Title II, interests of federal government, treatment of military lands, waiver of claims to federal property. Subtitle B, federal courts. Subtitle C, federal elections. So, right, it's just basically giving us a run of the mill breakdown of how states operate. And it's just in bill form. So this is something that's new to us, and I believe that we should study this because we've never, well, let me say, I've never seen a bill like this and that I can remember in my lifetime. And I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend like I was always reading the bills as they pass the House. But I believe that this is something different. So let me stop this. And I wanna, let me see if I can find this part in Charles Blow's book, The Devil You Know. For those of you who do not know about Charles Blow's book, The Devil You Know, right here, this book is laying out a straight up blueprint for how our people can gain political power by populating these states in the South, right? So he says on page 44, in point of fact, my reverse migration argument targets only 9 of the states that are included in the census count: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. And he suggests going to specific cities, right? Now, he puts Washington, D.C., and in parentheses, he says, preferably in the Maryland suburbs, because the district, unfortunately, is not a state and thus fills no senators. But he sees the importance of, well, if it's not going to be a state, then the people from DC, and this is me interpreting this here, should move into Maryland, right? And I would call it, like literally call it Chocolate City. That would be the name of the city, Chocolate City, Maryland. But now that Washington, D.C. is on the verge of being a state, it gives us a different look at this whole thing. I got my brother Logic in the building, Dr. Logic Frame. What's going on?
Yeah.
What you think
Peace,
about
peace. Can you hear me? Am I good? Am I coming through?
Yep, I hear you.
All right, good, good, good. Yo, I mean, this was a big piece of legislation that got a vote in the House today. So, I mean, it's only right that we discuss it. You know what I mean? And we're talking about adding another state, right? There's a lot of things that are to be considered when we talk about the DC proposition. And, me and myself, I'm a fence rider on this particular issue. You know what I mean? I'm not against it. I'm not like overwhelmingly for it. And I'll tell you why. Although I'm super concerned with establishing a state majority for black folks. I just like there's so many things that go into DC becoming a state, right? The specificity about DC becoming a state, like the way logic looks at it, right? Is that what is the motivating factor behind it? And maybe some of our brothers and sisters who live in that area can come on and shed some light about the details and some of the history behind that push to get DC to move to statehood. Maybe y'all can talk about that and give us some insight, because what I look at is like what I see it as right now, it's really not a people's push. It could be. Maybe it started out as a people push. Most movements start out that way, as a people's movement. But what I see is the Democratic Party trying to, or not trying to, but the Democratic Party being the engine for this drive for statehood and uh, trying to create not a democratic state far as democracy is concerned, but a democratic state so far as the party's concerned. So where they can get their hands on state power and control it absolutely, right? Understand that DC is a very small place. DC, I think the population is, 700 to 800,000, not even a million people in DC. And correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody out there that's close to that area, please correct me if I'm wrong on anything
No,
that I may say,
you
because I
right.
want to be right.
I'm gonna pull up some stats in a few. You're definitely on point with that.
All right, bet. So, and like the town is basically, a college town, a political town, a legal town. Like, what does the city of DC produce to be able to carry statehood in a meaningful way? And what am I saying? I'm saying, like, what would DC's economy be based on? Right. And then understand that what comes with the enormous power of statehood. You're talking about uh, the governor, like all of that. So first, like if this pass right and they grant DC statehood and they turn that area into a state, the Congress is going to appoint the state government until they have an opportunity to elect officials, right? So Congress is going to appoint the governor. They're going to be provisional governors, provisional attorney generals, provisional states attorney, not states attorney, yeah, states attorneys, but provisional Supreme Court justice, Secretary of States, all of that, right? You got a House of Representatives, a state Senate. You have now U.S. senators that have to be included. Like, it's so much that goes into this thing. And I don't want us to get just simply caught up in the moment of the possibility of having a black majority state and not actually have the people power that's supposed to come with that. If you get the wrong people in office just because they black, don't mean that they are for the people, family. And you have to, that's more important than anything in my mind, right? It has to be pro people. You can't just have a bunch of black whack motherfuckers in office passing a bunch of pro, like, party line politics. It's so close to Washington. Then you got to ask yourself, right? How does that work, right? That's a lot of conflict in one small, very small area. You have the nation's capital, right? In a city, in a state now that's not even big as a large city. You're gonna grant statehood to a geographical area that really isn't big enough to even include more cities in it. It's a small area. So you can't even create more cities out. Like, you're going to give, that's a lot of power to concentrate in such a small area.
Let me
And I just have concerns. That's
let me
all.
let me just read. This is section 3 of subtitle B, seat of government of the United States. And I definitely understand what you're saying. That proximity to Washington, D.C. I mean, that's, to me, that's problematic. I mean, not Washington, D.C., but the White House. But it says this. It says, in general, let me pull it up so everybody can try to follow along with this thing. It says, in general, except as provided in subsection B, The state, and it's talking about this new state, Washington, D.C., shall consist of all of the territory of the District of Columbia as of the date of the enactment of this act, subject to the results of the metes and bounds survey conducted under subsection C. B, exclusion of portion remaining as seat of government of United States. The territory of the state shall not include the area described in section 112, which shall be known as the capital and shall serve as the seat of government of the United States as provided in clause 17 of section 8 of article 1 of the Constitution of the United States. Then they go down to section 112 and they're giving a description of capital, but it's still like in the same place. Now, my thing with DC is that it's still being ran by or ran as a city. And I read an article some years back about DC statehood, and it was making the argument for. And it was saying it is the only place in the United States of America where there is taxation without representation. So, and I can't remember what article that was, but it was some years back that I read that. And at the time that thing made sense. So, you know, they have it in the language in the bill, but you know, we talked about this earlier, and my brother Logic was hitting on some really good points about the proximity of this democratically controlled city. And by Democrat, you know, I echo what my brother says. I don't mean the process. I mean, because it says in it that it will be a Republican state for those that don't know the difference. Let me see. Section 101, admission into the Union. Subsection B says Constitution of State. The state constitution shall always be Republican in form and shall not be repugnant to the Constitution of the United States or the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Right? So we have these elements that it will be Republican in nature because we live in a democratic republic. But the worry that you know we had earlier, we had a good a good long discussion on this earlier, and it's that now you get the Democrats finally gain some political power, but where does that leave us? Right? That's why I asked the question. Like, can this help us? How will that help us if the District
I
of Columbia becomes a state? Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I want to just like break some more details out, right? So, like, somebody was like, DC has a higher population than Wyoming. Although that is true, you have to look at other factors, not just population, right? Wyoming is a agricultural state, right? Wyoming is, as far as the geography of Wyoming, is like 96,000 plus square miles. Like, I think DC is like 170 something kilometers square miles, right? It's nowhere in comparison. So I asked, like, you don't understand like the incredible responsibility. So it's not just power that statehood brings, it's responsibility too and obligation. So is DC just going to be like a welfare state? Because it doesn't have a GDP. It doesn't. What is DC's economy? What is DC going to produce? What does DC going to do other than politics and like school and law? Like, what is going to be the economy of a DC? You know what I mean? And so, like, statehood in many ways makes sense after a lot of different things have been established. But DC doesn't have an agricultural base. It doesn't have an industrial base. You know what I mean? So, like, what is going to now? DC has a different kind of relationship with the federal government once it achieves statehood. So I don't want us to be overzealous in the effort of attaining a, a black majority state to put ourselves in a position to where we're going to, one, set up an alley-oop for white folks to just come and take the power away from us, and two, put ourselves in a position to where that statehood isn't really beneficial like we want it to be, insofar as being an independent state. Because now, look, you got the state capital in the same proximity or in the same residence as the nation's capital, which, if we're going off today's political climate, you got the Democrats running the show, right? In DC it's largely Democrats, right? So now you have a situation to where that can just be like a dumping field for people who want to get slide out of Capitol Hill and just go to the state capitol in DC. So now you can get Nancy Pelosi, for example, right? Or a Kamala Harris type individual who go and run bad federal policy for Black folks, and because of the optics and the symbolism, they can just slide into the end, and because of the democratic captured environment of our people, they can just slide right to DC and become a governor, or become the the speaker of the House there, or the Senate president there, by running for state Senate or running for a House rep on the state level. And they can just control politics again there, because that power, politics is a lot like real estate, in the relationship that you want your proximity to power to be as close as possible. And we know where the bag is at. The bag is at the federal level. So now having a state capital and the nation's capital sharing the same space, to me, is very problematic. And it's a conflict of political interest because of the amount of influence the federal government will wield over DC. So that's just kind of how I'm looking at it. Feel free to speak your piece.
Yeah. Peace, y'all. So I was just thinking, obviously, and I didn't hear what was shared earlier. So I was here just thinking about, DC being what the largest percentage Black city, and what that would mean if it was that would mean if that was made a state. What it would mean it would be the first state that's a majority Black state in the country, and that means you could possibly, if politics was done right, like if we had a focused effort on doing Black centered politics, that means we would already have a state that's a part of the union where you can pump out some reparationists, senators, and House reps, governor. Uh, I mean, that's how I would look at it. Now, if you look at DC, the history of leadership in DC, it doesn't have a recent run of city Black centered or focused, or they really seem like they are prioritizing or even caring about the issues of our people in the city over top of other interests, economic and whatever the case may be. That's a problem, because if you are just going to give more power to foster that type of environment, and you're going to make it more you're going to make it more advantageous, or you're going to attract bigger fish to that type of pond, then that's a problem. But if you're able to understand what that means, in the same way that we're looking to use our back home strategy, and being intentional and doing like an intentional cultivation of self-interested politics, and fighting for reparations, then I think it could be used for an advantage. But that has to be like something that starts immediately. It can't be. We can't be electing the same people who are not going to move the needle for us anywhere, who are just accommodating business, and and it's not just DC. It's a lot of cities like that, especially cities that have Black mayors. It has to be a return focus to, like, look, we need to do things in a way that is going to restore us, or to uplift this group here as a priority, What do y'all think about that?
I think
On
like
point.
yeah, that's definitely on point. And what I need people to think about, right, is you have to redefine or refine what you classify as an actual political win, right? We have a comment saying somebody says take the win and fix the problems later to summarize their comment, basically, right? It says, okay, caution, take the win and proceed cautiously. If there is no win, you still lose, right? So what is a win? I have to ask that to you. What is a win in your mind, right? What is the win, right? To me, and you just got to understand logic, right? I'm a person who is a people policy focused individual. I don't give a fuck about parties. I don't give a fuck about agendas. I care about the people. So all my political focus is about the people. See, and that's a good example, like a Biden win. Who is that a win for, right? Who is Kamala a win for? Who was Obama a win for? So potentially with the present political climate of DC, right? You can't just think about the population. You have to think about the political landscape as well. The political players in DC, and maybe some of you people who are close to that area can chime in on this. To me, they seem to be, from what I know, my limited knowledge, heavily Democrats, right? Heavy Democrats, more Obama types, more Kamala types coming out of the political landscape in DC. You understand? So is that what we need running the first black state? And if you look at the history, we don't have a good history of first, right? The first usually be the first ones to fuck some shit up for us, right? Look what Obama, the first quote unquote black president, look what he did for black wealth and look what he did for black folks, right? Is like the people that end up being first in these first examples really have a lot of bad experiences that come along with them. Now, that's not an absolute to say everybody who achieves something for the first time messed it up. That's not what I'm saying. But we have to be cognizant and understand like we're playing a serious game. Government is the game and politics is how it's played. Is that the best move? Don't just look at DC statehood as that's a good move for us. Is it the best move? That's how we should always be thinking. I don't give a damn if it's a good move. I want the best move. Is that the best move right now for our people? Would it be a better move later, right? If we can get some more data out of the city to try to trend a different way far as building a reparation in city. I don't even know what the politicians in DC really even stand for. Now you're going to create a state out of not only a small populace, but a small geographical area who really don't have a state economy based on anything. So what is it really going to be based on? People, it's going to be based on nepotism, patronage, corruption, and pay to play. That's the only thing it can be based on. It don't have nothing else. I'm not knocking it. I'm just being real. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that excuse me, we get caught up in so much symbolism. Blacks said DC statehood is a win, period. It can be leveraged, but yes. And I don't think that they're really understanding what you're saying when you break it down by good move and best move. Now, I admit that if we are able to make inroads in that city, right? If it, excuse me, in that state, if it becomes a state, if we're able to get out there and spread our reparationist freedman message to all of our people out there, and we are able to build a real coalition that lets the Democratic Party know that right here we have the majority. And if y'all think that y'all are going to use this as some political power, well, we are going to show you that the power of the ballot is powerful, which y'all already know. They're so used to having us as a captured electorate that they feel that the Negroes are going to fall in place. You ain't black if you don't vote for me, right? So, but if we can get out there, if we can get our people from DC and all right, hold on, I gotta address this. He said Well, you address it. Well, let me start, and then you go. I know it's addressed to you. He said, "Well, Logic, what is the better move? First and foremost, this is not our strategy. This is the strategy of the Democratic Party so that they could have more power over the Republican Party. Point blank, period. This is not our strategy. We went in on this book, The Devil You Know. Charles Blow gives us an excellent strategy that we have adopted and that we're running with, along the same type of lines of having the numerical majority as Black people in any given state, right? So you make it seem like this was something that we just wanted for our benefit. You're not looking at it right. But what you got to say to that, bro?
Well, for one, I would say it's not about what I think is the better move, right? Because I could tell you what I think is the best move all day. I can lay down my criticisms all day. At the end of the day, you have to do your own due diligence, look at that thing inside out, and come up with what you think is the better move. And if you can't find a better move, then maybe that's the best move in your mind, right? But that, to me, I want us to be thinking not emotionally or optically, like it looks great to say we have a Black state majority if it don't come with the power. Now, the difference between what Charles Blow's strategy or the return home strategy, we're talking about real states, right, with real economies that can wield real power, right? That's a different dynamic than dumping a whole, and none of these states that we're talking about, right? So let me rewind a little bit, right? So the return home strategy is a political strategy, but it's an economic strategy as well, and it's not solely based upon the idea of simply just having, like, or doing anything and everything just to have a Black majority. Like, I just want a Black majority. That's not, but what we want is the results that a real Black majority, it's not just any Black majority thing. What Charles Blow is talking about, people who descend from those individuals who came from the Great Migration. So he's really talking about the sons and daughters of freedmen, right? Having freedmen majorities in these states, right? In that state, if DC gets statehood, it could be like, that's a lot of immigration in DC, right? That state, DC, could be majority Black on the outside, but it could be Nigerian. It might not be freedmen. It could be Caribbean. It could be Haitian. It could be a whole litany of different things. And it's not rooted in the same history that we're talking about. Then there's no economic power base to undergird the state. You understand? It's basically going to be just a landfill for Capitol Hill to do what it wants to do with that state, right? You're going to have, nobody wants Big Brother on their ass like that.
Hold on, bro. I think people are really missing your point, bro. I don't know what they're listening to. I don't know what they're listening to. And we had a good debate and discussion earlier about this thing, right? And because we need to do that so that we could understand both sides of the argument. And there was no wrong side of the debate. Like,
Right.
Have our little discussions, they turn into debates. This was one of those, there was really no wrong side about it. Like,
let me tell you the difference. Because we talked about this earlier. The difference than anywhere is the fucking state. The nation's capital isn't in every state. Until you understand that, right? The problem, like, why do you think they carved out a special place for the nation's capital in the first place? And if you never worked in government and you don't understand the World Series of corruption is at Capitol Hill, you wouldn't want your state capital to share the same residence as Capitol Hill either, where they create the money and where money is the root of corruption. That's not what you want. You already have to guard and safeguard against corruption no matter where you're at. But if you're the closest to corruption, it's going to be harder to do that. So now it's going to be nothing but controlled, paid for, propped up, you understand, people representing our group in DC. Now, I'm not against, don't get me wrong, I'm not against DC becoming a state. I'm not overwhelmingly for it being a state either. I want to have a discussion that exists outside of the opportunity. Fuck having opportunities. Everybody gets so excited of the opportunity exists, though. We have an opportunity. Fuck that. What does the math say? What does the tactics, if you look at it tactically, is it strategically sound? What is going on right now? I don't want to know about what can happen tomorrow. If we get reparation to see in tomorrow, that's after the power been dumped on them. What happens when power and corruption gets dumped on the people who ain't set up for it? Now you got people with money, you already out economically maneuvered, right? So now you don't understand, power brings corruption and enemies. It breeds that. So now you get statehood in DC. You get all these wealthy people who want the power that comes along with statehood. You don't understand the massive amounts of power that comes with statehood, right? So now white folks are already set up. They're already set up economically to come to a place like DC. White folks want to come to DC. White folks ain't in a hurry to move to Mississippi. That's the fucking difference. You understand? But they will move to DC. You better believe it. To be that close to all that power, they'll get their ass up and move to DC. Quick, fast, in a hurry. You understand? What is the economy potential? What is the economy going to be based on in DC? No one in the chat has mentioned nothing about that yet. They keep acting like I'm on some nut shit because I'm questioning things. But what is the economy of DC going to be based on once it becomes a state? What is it going to be? Is it going to be industrial? Is it going to be agricultural? What's it going to be set up on? Somebody tell me that in the chat and explain that to me. You understand? Then do you understand that once the legislation gets passed, Congress is going to create or appoint provisional governors, provisional state representatives? Who are they going to pick to run that state until they have an opportunity to vote? And do you trust those people to do that? And I'm still not saying that I'm against DC being a state. I'm just asking some questions that need to be asked.
And that's why I keep saying they don't really understand. I don't know why, they're looking at it that way, but I mean, it is what it is. So this is what I want to go ahead, Josh.
Tourism cannot carry a state. You understand? Tourism can do fine in a city. Tourism cannot build a functional economy for a state. Y'all don't understand the difference between being a municipality, a town, a city, and having a state. Then now, you don't understand what creates a state? You have to have a state constitution. Who's going to write that state constitution? That's going to be the most important part of DC statehood. What is that constitution going to be like? Do you know what that constitution is going to be like? I don't. Can anybody chime in on that?
No.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Josh.
I don't know. I will say that it's the numbers in terms of our population power is definitely trending fast the wrong way. So, when you look at gentrification is crazy. DC is probably like one of the poster childs nationwide for gentrification. When you look at wealth inequality, DC is right up there with any other city. You look, I put it in DC. You look at again, I'm gonna give you all the wealth statistics. Middle black family, native black, okay, in DC is worth $3,500. Middle white, I think it's 284,000. Now this is 2016 numbers. Middle I don't want to say it. Middle Indian, 573,000. So if you want to, and if they're gentrifying and there's less and less like subsidized housing and all this kind of stuff,
Josh P,
who is moving over there? Who's moving over there? It's not going to be us.
Somebody gave a great example of your favorite quote, right? This dude gave a perfect example of what you call fire ready aim. Yep. You understand? Right? That's when you're doing things back. So the brother says, right, I think your argument can be better stated as this. get the win, and let's build on all of your questions and concerns. I agree. Who the fuck wants to get the shit squared away after you have it in your hands? I want it to be ready, aim, fire. Don't dump, because now you already got to move running. Once you got statehood, it ain't time to say, how do we answer these questions? No. You have the enormous responsibility and duty already on your back. It's already been levied on you. Things have already been set up. And you talking about, let's answer the questions after we get the win. What win? You don't know what a win is.
Facts.
You done got a win for somebody else.
Yeah, I would say that the work to be done, like for what we're trying to do, and what as a group, like a lot of us around the country have been trying to do, is build a national consciousness of understanding that we need to do group specific politics. We need to be engaged in politics heavy, and we need to advocate for reparations, and we need to make that the standard that all of our elected officials adhere to if they want to get our votes. That's the work that a lot of us have been doing, and I think without DC, if without that permeating in the masses of us in the city, or at least a large percentage, without being a lot of grassroots groups or whatever that make that, they bring that to the consciousness of the majority of our people in the city, then what happens is you see, like they may not have, like when we want to have elected officials, they just going to keep electing the same folks that don't have no interest in reparations, that they're bought and paid for by whatever special interest. But the flip side is, if you wait until, if we do not do this now, what will happen is you may get to a situation where now there's not going to be there's going to be a Republican controlled Congress that is not going to obviously pass the DC as a state. They're not. Well, first of all, the Senate is not going to pass it now. But let's just say they did. Otherwise, if you wait now, it's Republicans controlling both houses. They're definitely not going to pass that. So then let's just say 12 years later or whatever, when Democrats do get control again and they want to pass it, now we might be not the majority in the city. We still won't be even if we are in a good consciousness to do something, we don't have the numbers to do it. So it's an interesting paradox. So if I had to pick one, I would rather get the win. I would rather get the win, even there could be a win in the future. I would rather pass and go ahead. That's just me, but we having the conversation, so I'm just telling you how I'm looking at it, and y'all, I'm definitely down to have the debate.
What's the cost? What's the price of living in DC?
I don't know what the average cost is, but it's expensive as hell.
Pull it up.
It's the most expensive in the country. Well, in the DC metro area.
I'll pull it up.
You break it up.
We've been a data focused. All right, my bad. Can you hear me? Am I still bad?
No, you good. You good now.
I mean, we've been a data focused group for the past couple years. Now, all of a sudden, we don't care about data no more, right?
What sense do it make? Just pull it up.
No, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm seeing. That I'm observing this in real time. I'm seeing that people all of a sudden, because of the optics of what the opportunity of having a quote unquote black majority state being manufactured from the Democratic Party could produce, they don't care about data no more, right? So let's see how long you can hold on to that majority once it becomes a state, right? And it has statehood. What is the cost of living? What is the average cost of a home in DC? I want to know that. I want to know these answers. I want to know these numbers, right?
Well, this is what I'm going to do while y'all pull that up. I want to pull up something that I have pulled up already. I want to talk to the poverty rate among our people there. It says DC's growing prosperity is not reaching black residents. Census data shows. This is from the DC Fiscal Policy Institute website. And it says the district's long-term success depends on ensuring that everyone has economic opportunity and the chance to succeed. Yet new income and poverty data from the Census Bureau tell us while many district residents are benefiting from DC's strong economy, many Black residents are still struggling to make ends meet and are not sharing in our city's rising prosperity. The district must do more to break down economic barriers faced by people of color and support families in building a secure future for their children. Overall, peep this, family. Overall, median household income in the district rose last year, continuing a 10-year trend. Continuing a 10-year trend. The sentence ends there. The median household income is now $82,400, which means that half of all DC households have incomes above this level and have incomes below it. The increase in median household income is a sign that many DC families are doing better as the city creates more jobs and wages rise. But a closer look shows that DC's growing prosperity is not evenly shared. While the median income for white households has increased significantly over the last decade, the median income for Black households hasn't budged. Black median household income in DC, now around $42,000, is less than a third of the white median household income of $134,000. You know, the lack of progress for Black households and a growing economy is a sign that the district is not doing enough to remove barriers to economic opportunity for Black residents, like hiring discrimination, underfunded schools, and insufficient affordable housing. They show a chart from 2007 to 2017. So it says DC's growing prosperity is not widely shared. So it shows the dark blue line is 2007, excuse me. So we see for white folks, it's 116,000 in 2007. The grayish blue line, baby blue, powder blue, whatever you want to call it, is 134,000. So we see growth there. When you look at the Black line, we had more wealth in the city at 43,000 in 2007 than we have in 2017 at 42,000. Right? So that's something to think about. And again, these numbers are probably not disaggregated. It's probably not Freedmen, because from what I know about DC, there's a lot of Black immigrants there. They own a lot of Ethiopian restaurants, et cetera, right? So we could be the drag on the Y. So we can't just go around counting this as a win, because when it becomes a state, who's to say that anything is going to change? We can speak about the poor in Mississippi, which is a state, but is being ran by a bunch of rednecks, right? What happens if it's a majority controlled Black city with our strategy? We're the ones moving and shape. So you see, it becomes a different dynamic. So I don't really understand what some of y'all are talking about in the chat. Y'all bugging to me. Y'all bugging. But I mean, anybody want to speak to any of that?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, it's just, again, I see this. And I understand why it's an emotional thing. It's a historic moment. I get it, right? But you have to put your emotions aside, and again, understand that I'm not against it. I'm just having a discussion about it. I have not made a decision whether I'm for it or against it. I have concerns. Now, if you're telling me I'm fucked up for having concerns about it, what does that say about you? That I shouldn't be concerned with one of the most historic pieces of legislation that is about to be passed, adding an entire state to the union? I shouldn't have any type of concerns about that. I have concerns about everything. There isn't a strategy that I've promoted on this show or spoken against on this program or anywhere else that I haven't had concerns about. Concerns is the signs of intelligence. When you're concerned about things, that means you're thinking. You understand? But anytime that you just letting your emotions lead the way, that shows you that you're still naive and you still are not mature enough politically to really make the kind of political decisions it takes to be successful in this game called government, right? Because sometimes what you feel is a good move tactically and politically isn't a good move. And sometimes the opposite is true. But what you should not be is feeling some type of way about mere concerns being brought up. If you feel some type of way that Logic is concerned about this and he's bringing up some concerns, if you're just not bringing up information and answers to ease my concerns, then what are you doing? You really, like, what kind of conversation are we having? Right? Logic is concerned, right? I'm concerned about what the state economy of DC would be like. I'm concerned about, like, all this energy that's going to be putting into creating a statehood out of DC with the nation. I'm really my biggest concern is that the nation capital is going to be in the same place. I really have a big problem with that. And if y'all do not see the problematic components of having the nation's capital, which is the belly of the beast and the World Series of corruption, right where your state capital is, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but I really would like people to really think about that, if that's what they really, really, really want.
This question
Like,
that's on the screen
for real
is, right, it's the purpose of this show, this discussion, this stream. He asked, the question then is, if DC is a state, can the outcomes of freedmen be improved? That is how you lead, right? That's how you lead off. Don't assume that we're for or against. That just your assumptions are wrong. My brother Logic is laying out a side of the argument intelligently that we should have concerns about, period. There's another side of the argument that says, but if we're, and that's the argument that Josh is making, if we're able to go in there and make our message heard and felt, then, I mean, we can take control over that thing. But Brother Logic raised some interesting points, right? About the state's constitution. We don't know who's going to write it. We don't know what's in it, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know what happens when it becomes a state. What happens when Republicans say, white Republicans, right? White neo-Confederates say, you know what? Let's go buy up all the prime real estate in DC. Now let's go buy up all the subprime real estate in DC. Let's start pushing the Negroes out. Let's gentrify, revitalize these areas, create housing for us and our people. Like, there's many different angles that we have to look at this thing.
That's a fact.
Let me pull up.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'm from one of the most corrupt states in the country. I know about corruption. That's not, I'm not saying there's a cure for corruption. What I'm saying is, I want corruption to be as diluted as possible. You understand? I don't want to drink out of a teacup with 8 millimeters of poison in it. I'd rather drink out of a thermos of water with 8 millimeters of poison in it. So my state, Illinois, has sent probably more governors to prison than any other state, and always makes the federal list of top 5 most corrupt states. Right? I understand that. I understand it's corruption. You got to deal with what you got to deal with. But I would not want, let's look at it this way. Let's say they was wanting to move the nation's capital somewhere. I would not, with all the corruption that I already have to deal with, I would not want them to plant the World Series of corruption, the heavyweight champion of corruption, right in my backyard. I already have to deal with my corrupt state government. I don't want to have to deal with that linking up with the champion of corruption, which is the federal government. I don't want that in my backyard. I think it's such a big beast that when they made the move to make it its own district, it was a sound move, right? I don't think it should be compounded with any other problems. Like when they moved it from New York and moved it to Philadelphia, and then finally decided to carve out its own federal space and give it its own jurisdiction, I thought that was a sound and wise move, because it interferes with state business, because the nation's capital is not a state, but it's ultimately going to create a conflict in the federalist relationship that we hold, because especially in modern times, because even back then, the federal government wasn't a currency creator. Now it is a currency creator, and we have obtained monetary sovereignty. So because a lot of y'all really haven't grasped that understanding yet, it really hasn't sunken in all the way. But I don't want the grand master of corruption to partner up with my already corrupt state government that I'm already dealing with right now, because it's going to be just too great to take on. If you're going to take on Washington, you got to take on Washington and have it like that. It has to be separate, in my opinion. Everyone is free to disagree with me. I don't have I'm not all knowing and the all wise. So anyone can disagree. That's fine. I'm just saying that's my thing, man. That's where my concerns rest at. You know what I mean?
Indeed. So I want to pull something up real quick, and then Josh, you could come in. This is the demographics of DC, and we got to look at all of these things, right? It's a conversation. This is the population by race. So, we see how this pie is broken up, black, white, and all of the other categories. So we have some numbers here. And we see that we do outnumber white folks in this district, right? 315,098 to 303,639. If DC does become a state, it will be the first state where we have a black majority. That is a fact. What other factors are we looking at? And that's why I brought up gentrification, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody brought up, they said that a lot of black jobs are a lot of black federal jobs are in Washington, D.C. And that's great. I love that if it's true, right? But we're talking about the majority. Like, I just brought up a graph.
That's because but like everybody's looking at the current, like of course there's a lot of federal jobs in DC right now. It's a federal district solely, right? But there's going to be a major carve out. You understand? When they're going to have to make room for statehood, and things are going to change in DC. And I don't think you all are really thinking about it like how it's really going to play out. And a lot of things will change. And I'm not saying that they're all going to be bad, but they're going to be different. And if your expectations are not right, then your disappointment is going to be heightened. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to curb your disappointment. Don't expect the same scenario and be like, oh, we just got statehood now. We just got access to senators now. We just got access to governors. And there's a lot of power that comes with that. And they're not dumping all of that power into and to create a state without already having some shit set up for you. You understand? I'm for the people, fam. And if I felt like this was truly going to benefit the people, I'd be 100% with that shit. Right. But anytime that any one of the major parties are pushing for something super hard, you have to look at that thing. You have to be skeptical because it ain't right. The parties ain't right. You understand? The parties ain't right. I'm with the return home strategy because that's a people's movement. You understand? It's not something that the Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party is calling for. That's a return home for the people, family. And then now I understand that the people are going to support the policies that are beneficial for the people. But if you get statehood, yes, that's a win optically. But if it's all controlled by captured Democrats, that's a L politically. So do you want an optic win or do you want a political victory? Now, we don't know what DC is going to do. And again, somebody attempted to answer my question and start talking about, I don't know what they said DC's economy was going to be based on, but now you're a state, you have to have a state economy. It can't just be based on, like, what is it going to be based on? No one still has said anything.
DC, a lot of your tech hubs have relocated to DC. To the DC area. If you just go in DC, it's a lot of tech companies. A lot of companies do business with the federal government, but that's not all that they're doing. I believe Amazon. Well, I don't believe it. It's a fact. Amazon moved they built their second headquarters in Crystal City, and since I've been in the area since 2008, and I know a lot of companies that were located on the West Coast and other places relocated over here into the area. So
Let's look.
tech is big over here. I know we're not necessarily hired in tech, but the federal government is the biggest industry over here. So the federal
That's
government
that
is
the federal
spending.
government can't fucking be your state economy. And that's what people keep saying in the chat too. Like government is yeah, that's because it's the District of Columbia right now. It's not a state. Like y'all not thinking, people. I need y'all to wake up with me, family. Of course, the federal government is the economy right now because it's the nation's capital and it's solely a certain 10 by 10 square block mile of federal territory. So of course that makes sense. But you're
Well,
talking about
hold on, bro.
transforming that. You're
Yeah,
transforming that.
but when we say the federal, what I'm saying the federal government, I'm not just talking about DC. The federal contractors there. If you go on the Greenway, they're way out in Virginia, all around the Beltway is littered with like large companies doing federal contracts. So it's already happening. A lot of those people are living in Maryland and Virginia also. It's not just DC. So that is a huge industry. And you look at how much the Pentagon is spending. You look at how much all the other agencies and stuff are spending. That's a lot of money. So this
Where does
plenty
that
of
money go?
mo-
Where's that money going?
I mean, I'm just saying, there's plenty of people
Does that
making
money?
money in
Where does
business.
that
There's
money
plenty
go?
of people
Where's that money going?
in terms of who is getting it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you look at the black population of DC. It is what it is. That's their wealth level is $3,500. So largely, we are disproportionately not working in those high positions. But if you look at um where people are living in, a lot of them are living in Maryland. A lot of those people are. And you
So
look at
if you
black business.
you do know
Mhm.
that if you have a bunch of federal jobs, right, or if federal jobs make up the bulk of your employment in that area, which is like the general consensus I'm getting from the chat is that like federal jobs are the thing out there. That y'all do know that doesn't do shit for your state economy, right? Do y'all know that? I just want to know if y'all know that. That don't do nothing for a state economy if
What do you
everybody
mean?
works. If everybody works for the federal government, they don't work for the state. You understand? Like if you work for the federal government, that doesn't do anything for a state economy. If that was the case, right? The people who work for the federal government, right, that live in Maryland or in Virginia somewhere, that would be benefiting their state. So it may benefit your bank account because you get a salary, right? I keep telling people government is the game and politics is how it's played. I don't think people really understand how government is set up. Once you have statehood now, all of the things that DC residents enjoy that are a benefit of their federal relationship is going to be transformed. DC is not a part of the nation's capital anymore. It will be its own independent, it'll be not independent in a way, but it'll be its own state with a certain amount of independence that it will have to support like every other state. So
But
it's you can't just say, oh, because that may work for a city, and you'd be like, oh yeah, like the city of DC, which is the nation's capital right now, right? It's not a state. So
won't the tax
what is it
revenues
going to
coming
look
from?
like?
But won't the
Tax
tax
revenues.
revenues coming from the those workers, be paid into the state tax?
Where do they go now?
So
Where do they go now?
they go to the state tax.
Pull it up. Let's see. Where do they go?
How can
So
it go
your
to the
your
state tax? There's no state.
that's what I'm trying to say. So where do they go now?
I'm talking about like in Virginia, we pay state tax, right? I got
You
to
pay
pay state
state,
tax in Virginia.
yeah, based, but what's that based on? What is your state tax based on? Your residency, right?
Right.
Right.
So if
Right.
I'm in DC and DC is a state, I'm paying state tax to DC from a federal
Okay,
job.
so now you got taxes, right? So you do know there are federal jobs in every state, right? But like that's not enough to carry the economy for a state. And it could be if you think employment, right, is going to, it's not any type of industry. So you, even a state that like Idaho or Ohio or any, like, so no agriculture. And I could be wrong. Logic is wrong a lot in life. You understand? So y'all telling me that federal employees are going to be what the fucking state economy is based
It's
on?
not.
For
It's
what?
not just
Stop,
about.
stop.
It's not just.
Hold on. That's what I'm getting in the chat. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Josh. You can come back and you can rebut, but I just want to ask that to the chat real quick before I ask it to you. And I want to say, so what happens when the government furloughs, right? And 90% of the city has our federal workers, and they all get laid off, like we seen with the fiscal cliff situation, and we seen with the debt ceiling situation, which we seen with Obama, we seen with Trump. We saw these things. So what happens when the entire now the whole state can't work because 90% of the state is a federal employee?
Yeah. So it's not just federal employees, it's federal contractors. But in that situation, even if you're a federal contractor or you working for a company that has large federal contracts, yeah, there probably would be some implications to furlough and all of that. But yeah, so but hey, in this area, man, that's gonna hurt people in Virginia and Maryland too. You know, that's gonna hurt everybody in this area. That's just what it is. Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC, the predominant industry is government
Yes, but
contract
see
work. That's just what it is.
the failures are magnified when you're the governor and you have to report those numbers and you have to be responsible for why your state's failing. It's different. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just a lot of things to think about, right? And again, I'm not against it. I'm not against the idea. I just want us to really know what we're getting in for, because there's a famous song by Ike Turner and Tina Turner. It's called "You Got What You Wanted. Now You Don't Want What You Got," and I don't want that to be the situation we end up in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kato is making you say that it's you know,
Yeah, some people, they like that. They like to do that. I'm not saying that, and I've said several times that that's not what I'm saying, but some people, and he's focused on Mississippi for some reason, like there isn't like 9 states that are a part of the strategy. He's very, I guess I don't know if he hates Mississippi or he has something personal against people from Mississippi. I don't know. I haven't had a conversation with him about that, but I don't know why he keeps mentioning Mississippi like that's the only state. And I could entertain that conversation, but I'm not here to put Mississippi against the city of DC. I'm just here to talk about DC. Mississippi has its problems, and I've spoken about it over the course of this broadcast existence. I've spoken about the problems that need to be addressed in Mississippi, right? But that's not what we're talking about today. And I'm not here to put Mississippi, which is already a state, which is already has history, right? Which already has all the components set in place, over creating another problem to deal with. So I agree, Mississippi has its problems. So what are we going to do? I'm not in the business of creating more problems while I'm trying to fix the problems that already exist. So you want to create more problems. Cool. All right. I pushed Mississippi because that's a part of the return states, and our people actually come from Mississippi. Like, that's an actual fact. Our people actually come from Mississippi. My family actually comes from Mississippi and Georgia. That's just where they come from. That's not me pushing that. I didn't have nothing to do with it. That was a fact long before anybody thought about bringing logic into existence. My people were just from there, right? And so that's Mississippi. When I talk about we talk about potential. When I talk about the economic potential of Mississippi, I have real tangible things that I can base my speculations off of. It's not just hope for, possibilities and shit. You can see that agriculture is a real thing there. You could see the potential, like a miner or like an investor can go and look, and they can see what yield can be brought out of Mississippi if the right equity is put into that place. I can see that, but I'm not here to put Mississippi against DC, and I'm not against DC becoming a state. I'm having a conversation about all of the things that could come with that and what we need to be thinking about if and when this thing happens, what we need to be preparing for, what we need to be setting up for. That's what I'm for. I never once said I don't want to see this. I wouldn't vote for it. I wouldn't vote against this legislation because I'm that undecided about it, right? So I would abstain from voting for this thing. You know what I mean? But I'm not against it. I'm not in opposite. Let me make this clear again for everybody listening, everybody in the chat. Logic Supreme is not against DC becoming a state. Just because I have serious concerns in the way I articulate it, you may think that, well, damn, he sounds like he is against it. No, because I focus on the problematic parts, because all the good stuff, we don't really have to focus on that. If it turns out good, that's great. But if we don't focus on the bad stuff, if it turns out bad, that's bad, right? So I got to focus on these things, and I need to feel comfortable about these things before I can be full chested about that. But at the end of the day, it won't come down to me whether it becomes a state or not. It's going to come down to people like Josh and his family, and I just want them to be thinking about that, because the decision that they make is going to impact the entire nation.
Yeah, and I'll say that what you know, the politics that's going on now, it has to be turned up, you know, because we don't really, like, just like in a lot of places around the country, we don't really have long, like, to get this thing done, to get this thing right, before our relevance and our little power that we do have is going to be going away. You know, you talk about the next generations that's coming up. I don't know what the next generation, how they're going to feel about politics. The world that they grew up in.
Yeah, so you know, we basically are having this discussion about DC statehood.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me switch to
Did you want to finish?
Yeah, the world generation is growing up in is different than the world we're in. So
Wow, Josh just clicked off again.
So we have to lead without our emotions. We have to actually think, right? And when we think things through, then we could come up with and develop better strategies on how. If you just jump into something, right, without vetting it, you don't know what you're jumping into. It's just as simple as that. And that's the basis of why this discussion is needed. When they draft bills and they have debates on the House floor, we watched that with the HR 40 hearing and the several pieces of legislation that were being voted on before it, that there's going to be debates about it. People are going to have their concerns, et cetera, et cetera. Being that we are not a party-based people, meaning those of us who are reparationist freemen, we are a policy-based people, then we have to look at it for what it is, right? So I said earlier, can we make inroads in DC to whereas we can rally up our people there so that they're not rocked to sleep by the Democratic machine? Cato said, I am a fan of highlighting all potential issues, but these issues already exist. Oh, absolutely. Which is why we're having the discussion, which is why we have to talk about them so that everybody gets to thinking on all sides. Because you might not have people in that city even having this level of discussion that we're having right now. It's just as simple as that. There may not be two sides.
Mm-hmm. Two good comments, right? And then one statement I'm going to make, right? I'm gonna make my statement first. My first statement is that I'm more like my focus, and I'm more concerned with how things are brought about than actually bringing things about. And what do I mean by that, right? I like with Black folks returning home with that in their mind to create Black majorities, right? With that on them, like, to me, building a black majority from the people up is a different experience than let's I'm not saying this is what happened in DC, right? And understand that it is DC folks' business, but ultimately it's national business because you're talking about adding a state to the union. That's a national issue. That's not just about DC. Y'all don't get to just have that conversation by yourself. You understand? Because now you're talking about the national interest. This is a national decision. You understand? We're a union of states, and we're having a national discussion about granting statehood, right, to a 51st state. So this is a national discussion. So don't think that, like, I respect the people, the residents of DC. I respect them greatly. But don't think that this is just a y'all stay out of our business type of situation. That's not what this is. This is a national interest issue. We all have a say-so and an opinion on this thing because it impacts everybody, right? When you add more senators and more Supreme Court justices and more representatives and more electoral votes, you are talking about the rest of the country having an effect, right? So what a good question from the chat was from what's his name? Let's talk Black said what? Let's talk strategy for DC. What should we demand in statehood negotiations? So instead, like, one thing that I would demand in statehood negotiations, and even before I get into that, I would focus on what that state constitution is going to look like. I think the bulk and the majority of the political energy and all your focus should be going in to that state constitution, because that state constitution is going to be the political DNA of that state. So all of the focus should be in that state constitution, and really being, because, like, once this thing happens, right, looking at who the provisional governors and representatives are going to be, who are going to be governing that state until it has an opportunity to, vote true democratic representation in office. You know what I mean? So that is really funny.
Hey, for
That's
some reason I'm on my phone and my phone line is just lit. I had to just put my phone on do not disturb. So I keep getting a call that knocks me
that
out.
is too funny.
It ain't my charger.
That is too funny. Thank you for whoever that is.
Yeah, but I
Brother,
appreciate it. I'm gonna go to Target and put some on it. I appreciate it.
Let me tell y'all something off topic, what we know now. When it comes to gadgets and gizmos and tech, Josh and his son have the greatest gadgets and gizmos than anybody I know. So I know he don't need no charger. His headphones can hear what you're thinking before it come out your mouth. So I know he don't need no help for gadgets and gizmos. That dude got it all, man. So
yeah, man. I want to say too, I like that we can have this conversation and just understanding, about what it would mean, and it is of a national interest. But I'm gonna just say, for me, I would, if having to make a choice, take one side on the issue, I would obviously be on the side of making it a state. But I would say, well, let me say one thing, and there's a strong reason why. When you look at DC not having any representation, the amount of people that are disenfranchised in DC, we're talking about like the same amount of people that was the entire population of the 13 colonies when America was made into a country. That's the population of DC now. It may not seem like it's a lot, but when you put it into the perspective of when they were framing the country, just DC alone is more people that were in entire United States in 1776, that's a bigger population than states that are already in existence. But secondly, if you think about those people not having the ability to even vote, now I have an alternative solution. I'm not going to reveal it on this program because somebody out of respect for the confidence that somebody shared with me, they kind of want to get it all flushed out. And so before I share it, before I give it to y'all, I'm gonna make sure I get the okay from somebody else. But this alternative solution is because obviously, again, y'all, the Senate is not going to pass this. You're not gonna get enough Republicans to sign on it. But the alternative solution I have actually may make a situation where they might want to sign it, but it's not going to pass. It's not going to pass. So we're just thinking of what ifs and all that. But if you had to pick one side, I would definitely pick for statehood. We need to work hard and get the power now, and take advantage of it now. But the opportunity to do it, when I'm thinking about it, is not going to really come back. It's going to be hard to think that it's going to come back in the near future. And later on, we're going to be more powerless. So to do something significant about it. And I just envision if it was to be made a state, now we have a situation where we can be serious about doing black politics. Like black politics, DC should be the nationwide center of like serious black politics, because you actually can get something done. You're talking about like the demands that should be on the candidates for senator and House rep and a governor. That needs to be like serious. Those demands need to be serious. Like we talk about reparations, that's just for starters. Like the commitment to being transparent, all of this kind of stuff. Like we will have to hold the highest standard to the black politicians. And if you think like we were talking about, like if you want to just talk about the people that you just threw out there who could say, you know what, I want to seize power. I want to seize power. I want to be in that position of power. So let me just go ahead and run for governor. Who were some names that you said, Brother Logic?
Yeah, so like what we was bringing up was like, okay, so like I don't want DC to turn into like a landfill for people at Capitol Hill to just slide in and continue to their reign of corruption. So like Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris or Michelle Obama. Let's leave Nancy Pelosi out because I don't want to talk about race, because that shit's retarded to me, right? And I use the term black for, everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that, right? But ultimately, like, just because you get the color you want don't mean that you get the content that you want. So if Michelle Obama ran in DC, she's going to beat anybody. Nobody's going to beat Michelle Obama if she ran for the governor of DC, right? But do you want Michelle Obama politics in DC? And that can happen for a lot of people who would just like buy them a little condo in DC while they're working at Capitol Hill, gain residency in the state. And then now you got people like Nancy Pelosi, like, after I done fucked up for 30 years in the House of Representatives, I'm going to use my political clout and juice and all that money from the Democratic Party to just run for governor of the state of DC now. You know what I'm saying? Do you want Kamala Harris after Joe and them fuck everything up and they get kicked out? Now Kamala Harris, launching gubernatorial campaign speeches from the campus of Howard University, running for governor of DC. Is that what y'all like? That's what can happen. Those are the type of things that make me be like, man, that could be bad. Because that's a lot of power.
Man, all I can see is us running the video. I'm not gonna do nothing that's gonna help only black people. No, we gonna run that. I don't know, man. I don't see her winning. Now Michelle Obama, yeah, but I mean she will win in any state. I don't know. Well, she will win it. I ain't gonna say any state, but she will win in any blue state. I don't see her losing in too many states.
Probably Georgia.
Yeah.
Oh, she'd definitely take Georgia.
Yeah, oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, if it does come down to the Republicans, I don't know, something happens, a catastrophe, and they abstain from voting or whatever the case may be.
this comment from Reek Omi, this is where I like my people to start thinking. And see, now y'all thinking right here, right? All black politicians out of DC as a state should be native blacks for 25 years. See, that's type of stuff y'all should be thinking about putting in that state constitution.
Right.
Now, see,
Right.
that's the type of stuff that makes me feel better. See, now I'm starting to feel better. I can feel better if I know people thinking about putting provisions and safeguards into things like that. You have to set, that's how you have to start setting this thing up with starting with stuff like this. That's how I need you to talk, and not just don't give me opportunity talk and let's see what happens talk. That don't make me feel good about nothing. I need real shit like this comment right here.
Yeah, I'm with that too.
Don't
Yeah, see, these are the type of ideas that people have to come to the table with. So that's why you need people that are like committed DC people, committed DC natives, and that's committed to doing, descendants of freedmen politics in DC to be crafting this thing and pushing this thing and creating future political consequences if we're left out. Where you're gonna have a whole bunch of mad black folks in the city that's gonna be raising hell, making life hell.
Or the state.
Yeah, because it would be a state. It won't be a city anymore. It'd be a state.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to say this too. Go ahead.
Let me just plug real quick. Y'all already know that the reparations rally is on June 18th, beginning at 11 a.m. to kick off our Juneteenth this year. If you want to donate to this cause, we have a GoFundMe up. We are trying to put together a powerful event. This is the Freedmen's Reparations and Justice Rally. So naturally, we are going to speak to issues concerning justice, or should I say the injustices that we receive. And largely, we're going to speak to reparations, because with reparations, there's a possibility that we are not even incurring all of these injustices in the first place, because we have ownership and we own businesses and industry where we hire our own. I mean, there's a whole big thing that goes into understanding economic security. So we are going to have a powerful demonstration of one of the mods. If you can, I think Cato had the link up earlier. Can you put that link in the chat again for the fundraiser? So I just wanted to plug that. June 18th, family. If you are in the Atlanta area, or if you ain't have nothing to do that weekend and you wanted to celebrate for Juneteenth, come to Atlanta. Come build with us. Come stand with us. Come let your voice be heard with us, because we're never going to stop fighting for this thing. And we will be giving away copies of Charles Blow's book, The Devil You Know, where we're breaking down that Southern strategy, see if we could get our people in the South to help create the pull factor to bring our people from the North. So
there's so many places I want to go with this thing tonight. But before I say that, I just want to say that rally is of the utmost importance. Right? We are about the people, right? We don't have any major industries and special interest groups behind us. What we have is the people. And if you care about, reparations for the sons and daughters of freedmen and bringing quality education and inspiration, motivation to our people, we need your support. You understand? No contribution is too great or too small. We need you to give, right? And help. This is a people's movement. This is a family movement. We need the family to help us get where we're going. We are not trying, but we are working on an amazing event that's going to be historic. Don't you want to be part of history? Don't you want to help us we're going to make history anyway, but don't you want to do your part in making history for freedmen and reparations and justice? Help the brothers out, help us out in what our goals are and achieving our goals in regards to putting together this reparations rally at Atlanta in the state capital of Georgia. And we're going to be doing powerful things. That is the beginning of a long laundry list of initiatives that we have on the agenda. Help us out, family. You understand? But so one thing I do want to say, right? It's about economics. It's about wealth too. What is wealth? Wealth is about ownership. Ownership. So when I like, again, I'm not against DC becoming a state. But when you try to bring Mississippi up and say what's for black folks and what's for freedmen in Mississippi, I gave a great example about the opportunities economically, right? And wealth wise, if you come from it. So don't look at what's happening in Mississippi right now, dear. You can if you want to, but I'm telling you what's in it for you. Let's say you're a nurse or you're a doctor. We have those. We have black Did y'all know that we have black doctors? Did you know that we have black RNs and LPNs? Did you know that? Did you know we have black truck drivers in business? Sometimes I think a lot of y'all think that everybody that's a son and daughter of freedmen just is unemployed and don't have nothing, right? So don't you know that you could get more in Mississippi than you can in these northern and Midwest places, right? I gave an example a few weeks ago that a good friend of mine paid less than $250,000 for a beautiful brick 4-bedroom house sitting on 1.5 acres of land. Less than $250,000. Beautiful, beautiful home. Long driveway leading to the mailbox. Beautiful land, trees, got pecans, got all kind of shit on the land.
How many acres?
1.5 acres, an acre and a half, with a 4-bedroom house. Where in the hell can you live like that for that amount? Where, like in places where I'm from, like Chicago and other places in Illinois, where can you live like that for that price point in DC? Huh? We're talking about wealth. You understand? Where can you? That's enough to build. You can build a couple more houses on a 1.5 acres. So where can you live like that at? We're talking about quality, not you have to look at everything in its totality, not just the impact of political majorities, but everything else that comes with it. We're talking about real power plays that come with economics, would come with wealth benefits, that come with the whole thing. The same can be said similarly for most of the southern states in the southern corridor. That's why we targeted these states. You know what I mean? And we looking at some of the price points in DC. Shit's astronomical, right? So
yeah, I'm gonna say what
you gotta look at that.
I got a close family member that live. It's not the hood, but directly across the street is the projects, but it's not the hood. But if you want to buy a house on the other side of the street where it's not projects, it's probably gonna cost you, you might be able to find one, a townhouse, an old townhouse for like maybe $700. You might be finding one in the 700s. Most likely, you're gonna probably pay like 900 or more. 900,000. That's what I'm talking. Not $900 a month. So when we talk, that's another thing though. We talking about some issues with DC. Now there are some places where you got homes that you can get in for lower. You might find something in the 400s and 500s or something somewhere. Don't ask me where. But I do have friends that bought homes over there that rented out rooms. And he probably paid I don't know. I'm guessing the 400 to 300. Probably not the 300s. Probably in the 400s. And I'm talking about in recent years. But just it may not. Most people may not want to live there. They may not want to leave where they have to go live there. But what I'll say is, I wanted to say in regards to DC, it needs to be the hub for reparations. If you're gonna make it a state, it needs to be where like the state constitution or whatever they do to bring it into statehood, it has special considerations for descendants of freedmen. Why? Because we're talking about a state, a city, or now you're trying to make it a state where the the slave owners of Washington D.C. were compensated they were paid reparations for their property being confiscated by emancipated by the federal government. So just that story alone, and not having representation for all of years, that's like DC needs to be the reparations hub. Like if you're not talking about reparations and closing the racial wealth gap, you should not even be allowed to. They should be in the Constitution. You shouldn't be allowed to run for Senate. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be allowed to take no position. That's where I'm at with it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen some very good, like, Abba, could you skim through this? There are some good comments in the chat. Some people are actually making some really good, high quality statements here on how to fix problems and how to address concerns. Some really good comments have come up from some of these people, man. I'm trying to find a couple of them in particular. I like this one right here. Someone said what you said, Josh. No former federal politicians in DC state office. I agree. That's something that y'all have to definitely make sure is in that state constitutional language, man. Y'all got to put that in there. That would be great. You know what I'm saying? And then somebody, Reek Omi, went even further in detail. Oh yeah, that was a good one too. So Reek Omi says no black politicians who have previously held office federally, locally, or state, to include first ladies in any capacity. No old Democrat Party hacks. I like that. I like that. Yeah. So those are just things you got to think about. And I'm not against DC statehood. I just want it to be right. That's all. You know what I'm saying? Anything done wrong is detrimental. You know what I'm saying? But you can do anything right. And I'm for it. If it's done right, I'm for it. But, that's all I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't get in the way of it. I tell you that. I wouldn't, like, if that's what the people on the ground wanted and the majority of the brothers and sisters around the nation said that that's what they wanted, I wouldn't get in the way of them. I wouldn't be in your way. I wouldn't try to stop it. You know what I'm saying? So don't try to make a adversary out of me. I'm not your enemy, family. I'm your brother, man, trying to help you. I don't try to make an adversary out of me.
That's fun. I was like, what's going on? Like, I just don't understand. Like, chill, be easy, man. Be easy. Y'all going too far. You're looking too much into the thing, and that's not what's being said. But it's good though, because we need,
it's good. I was just about to say it's good though. It's good. It's good. I don't mind it.
Discussions, and
yeah,
because we gain more insights. We become more knowledgeable at the end of the day. We get to ask some hard questions, and we try to come up with some even harder answers.
Ooh. ADOS Louisiana. I really wanted to remain in New York. A much better life without snow was waiting for me in Louisiana. One of the best decisions I've made in my adult life. House, land, boat. Come on, brothers and sisters, right? Come on now. Like, come on now. I know y'all some good thinking people. You can't tell me you can't create a 10-year like a 10-year strategy to move down south and be good and set yourself up nice, to get in contact, reconnect with your actual cousins and actual uncles and aunties and shit down south. Some of y'all was trying to make, not too long ago, connections in Africa with motherfuckers you ain't never heard of. You understand? You mean to tell me you can't attempt to make a return home and a connection to your brothers and sisters from the south, where your actual your grandmothers come from and your grandfathers actually come from? You can't do that. You can't make a 10-year plan to do that. And I like my politics, and I like my planning like I like my food, right? I like that slow cooking, that home cooking. I don't want no microwave policy, some policy that was produced overnight. And I don't like that. I like my stuff to be marinated. I like it to be slow cooked. I like it to be on the timer. I like it to be watched. I like the recipe to be carefully put in and make sure the doses and the measurements is right. That's how I like my policies, like home cooking. You understand? So I don't mind if you take 10 years, right? We got a major deadline is in about 2053. If we don't make a serious political change, we're going to be economically and politically irrelevant, right? So we can make a serious impact in just the next decade, family. If we just take the next 10 years, that puts us at 2031. If we take the next 10 years, we could change our destiny forever. And that's just 10 years, family. We can all come up with a 10-year strategy to make this thing happen.
Facts. Let me read something real quick. I got Reek Omi's comment up. I read this earlier, and I don't know if he was listening. Remember, we have adopted this strategy. This is a sound strategy. So let me read real quick from page 44. He says, in point of fact, it's Charles Blow, my reverse migration argument targets only 9 of the states that are included in the census count: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. Specifically, I suggest gravitating to the major cities arranged like jewels on a chain, which dot the Interstate 20, Interstate 95 corridor from Shreveport, Louisiana to Wilmington, Delaware. Now, listen to the cities that he names, Reek. They include Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, about 90 miles north of I-20, Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., preferably in the Maryland suburbs, because the district, unfortunately, is not a state and thus filled no senators in Baltimore, Maryland. So now that it's on the verge of statehood, yeah, you like this. That's why I said I'm urging everybody to get this book and read it. Now that DC is on the, it's on the cusp of being a state, and now it does make sense. I see people talking about cost of living, quality of life, et cetera, et cetera. These are some things that people have to think about. We can't not exclude them just because we're trying to make an argument for. Everything should be included in the process of deliberation. We are smarter than that. That's to everybody else that's saying what they're saying. So,
yeah, man. So, I just wanted to put some things out there for people to consider. We got some people got the message. They started talking about, provisions and protocols and policies and things that they wanted to put into that state constitution. Like that's more like that's the response. Like I'm waiting for the day we can be politically mature enough as a group that when I ask some of these thought-provoking or raise some of these thought-provoking concerns, we can say, too easy, brother Logic. We'll address that with the state constitution. That's what I was looking for tonight, right? Be like, no, if we focus on getting that state constitution right, we can stop this, then the third. We started to get there. Some of the comments started to suggest things that would be necessary to keep that thing black, to keep it right, and to make sure we protect it. Because if the DNA of that state is going to be made and built on that constitution, that state constitution, right? And I'm still, again, for the record, I'm not against DC becoming a state. I'm not against that at all. I just have concerns. And just like a child, you should have concerns. Like I was always a family man, but I have concerns. I'm concerned about how I'm going to take care of these children. And as an adult, you should be concerned. And what you're looking at as a state is like creating a baby, right? And you should be asking yourself the same kind of questions, and you should have the same kind of concern as when you bring a child into this world as bringing a state into this union. You should have the same kind of concerns.
So this person has been semi-trolling in the chat all night. Black said, ain't nobody going down south, but we have relatives who need us at home, right? And
take them with you.
That's
where is home? Where's home at?
Where is home?
Yeah, let's put out the don't say home, say you got where they at.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And when you say ain't nobody, you gotta already understand that Naheem is from New York, who's already moved south. Right. I'm from Illinois, who've already moved south. So when you say nobody, who you talking about? You talking about? Yeah, you're not gonna do it. And understand that the strategy, him or her, whatever, but the strategy doesn't call for everybody. It calls for half of the 44% of our people who live outside the South currently. which is about 22% of our people to come back home. So if you're a part of that other 22% who is stuck and obstinate, you know, we love you, fam. Stay where you at.
Stay where you at.
Just don't get in the way of the strategy. Don't
That's all.
don't tell people not to move. Just if you want to stay, stay. But don't tell no one else to stay. Let them make their own decision.
If they
Don't
ask
be
me-
opposition.
If they ask me how to handle it, I'm gonna say run them over. They in the way.
Yeah, they in the way.
So
You know what I'm saying?
we we had a good discussion tonight. We needed to talk about this thing. We needed to talk about this
Oh yeah.
huge piece of legislation that DC is becoming a statehood. There are some pros and there are some cons. And you know, I think that the pros and the cons for the most part have been laid out tonight. I'm gonna look for more political commentary from the DC pundits and see what they say, because you know there's gonna be some partisan bickering about this thing. I think I've already seen. Matter of fact, there was an article earlier where the Republicans was saying something during, I think it was the vote, and this black brother from DC, oh, I forget his name. Oh, I forget his name. But he called it, he told him, like, take that racist trash somewhere else. Then they asked for him to strike that from the record. So then he had to get up and have it struck from the record, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, DC, you don't think those neo-Confederates are not looking at DC as, you know, don't think about
Yo, look. I think like you can go ahead and full-fledged say that this brother's trolling or sister's trolling because they're not listening to absolute. I just sat here and said we both live down south and we came from the north. I'm in like Georgia. We right now from some. This is a Chicagoan who has relocated to Georgia, South Georgia. I'm deep South Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So, and I've been living here for 3 years, right? So I'm not suggesting to other people to do what I'm not willing to do. Brother Naheem is from New York, north. He been living down here in Georgia for 12, almost 13 years, brother or sister or whoever you are. So please pay attention. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Come on now. You can do better than that.
That's it. And, you know, yo, look, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, but we have to be on top of it. How much of our input as a people went into any of this vast legislation? This is a big bill, family. This is a really, really big bill. How much of our input went into the construction of that bill?
Facts. And that's all I'm saying. We got to have our fingerprints on that thing, man.
That's
I don't you know, I just need to hear more from the people. You know, to me right now, in all of my ignorance, right? Forgive my ignorance, it just looks like a Democrat party trying to make a major grab on power. I just need to hear more from the people. And if the people are really, you know, invested, you know, wholeheartedly into that thing, and if they are putting and planning for the right type of protections and protocols and shit to go in place, that's my concerns. And I'm not against it. I want it to work out. Why wouldn't I want it to work out? But I have to express the concerns I have, right? And I want it to be done right. And that would be a powerful thing. Yo, my man, the amazing, you know, and my family is from Mississippi, right? And I've gone to many family reunions in Mississippi. So I'm no stranger to the South. And most of our people who are sons and daughters of freedmen are not strangers to the South. And you shouldn't look at us as not your family, right? That black, whatever that individual's handle is, you shouldn't even be looking at us like that. Like, that's problematic. If you look at us like we're not family, that's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? We're the descendants of the people who were driven out of the South because of, you know, white violence, domestic terrorism. You know what I'm saying? We was just searching for, you know, some type of employment to take care of our families. Like, none of our people, the majority of our people didn't want to leave the South. And being born in the North, we had no control of it. So don't look at us all fucked up like we the enemy. We trying to come back home, fam. The
Facts.
fuck is you talking about?
Facts. I'll time that troll out, man. But look, we had the discussion tonight. We gonna close it down. What's we on Thursday? I don't know. We may do some pop-ups over the next few days. Y'all make sure y'all click on the subscribe button if you are not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, click that little bell icon next to the subscribe button so you can become a part of the notification nation so that when we go live, you will be alerted. We got to keep these discussions going. You know, we are and we have to become leading voices in our political destiny. It is as simple as that. And that's why we decided to have this conversation tonight, because this is, like Brother Logic said, this is not just a piece of legislation that affects the people in that specific area. This is national because it will become a part of the federal government, like insofar as fielding senators and representatives now. This is something completely different. So we got to make sure
Facts.
we're on top of this thing, fam. So you know, Brother Logic, you had anything to share before we got up out of here?
No, family. I like the discussion. I like having the tough discussions where the family
Mhm.
gotta, we gotta get emotional, we gotta get passionate. I love it, man. I got love for each and every one of y'all. I love y'all. You know what I'm saying? And like sometimes we gotta have the tough conversations. Everybody's not always gonna agree, and we shouldn't. And I don't want a bunch of yes, amen corner people in the chat. I want people to challenge what we have to say and challenge our positions and bring information and thought provoking statements and questions to the chat. We embrace that. We encourage it. We want that because that's going to benefit the growth and development for all of us. It's not about me. It's not about Naheem. It's not about any of it's about all of us as a family. You know what I mean? And so everyone's is important in my mind. Even the people I disagree with, like we all important at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Just
like just keep
make sure y'all getting it right though. Don't keep saying
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not even being said. I'm gonna have an issue with that.
yeah. Yeah,
What are
just
you listening to, man?
use this thing right here, man. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Use this thing, man. Because we will. I don't want you to take it personally, but we will get on you. Y'all know
That's
how
a
we get
fact.
down.
That is
We
a
will.
fact.
Don't take. You can take it personal if you want, but we will get on you. But I love all y'all still. Sometimes we show tough love, and it is what it is. But keep coming through.
That's right.
Be the power is the place to be. We're gonna keep coming through with the best we have to give. And we hope it's well received. Man, we all gonna get to that destiny together, man. Government is the game and politics is how it's played. And we are here to help our people be the best at playing that game, man. So,
Facts.
it is what it is, family. Keep tuning in. Stay tuned, family. Support us at that rally, family. Peace.
Facts. I ain't got too much to say. So I'm going to end it with the motto of the platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then we will have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.